Ethan was just an ordinary student. He was studying at one of the most advanced universities on Earth, where humans and aliens lived side by side. He had always been fascinated by alien life, their cultures, and their technologies. His passion for xenobiology led him to choose a major that focused on the study of alien species and their behavior. However, despite his deep interest, Ethan never expected to be involved in anything beyond his textbooks and lectures. The university was hosting an intergalactic symposium, a grand event where delegates from different species across the galaxy came to share knowledge and discuss the future of intergalactic relations. The campus was filled with alien diplomats, scientists, and visitors from all over the universe. It was a rare and exciting moment for Earth, and Ethan could hardly believe he was part of it. Ethan stood in the main hall, surrounded by exhibits showcasing alien technology and culture. He had always dreamed of seeing these artifacts up close, and now here he was, watching people from different worlds interact in a place that was designed to bring them all together. His excitement was palpable as he marveled at the different species present, but little did he know, something unexpected was about to happen. Suddenly, chaos erupted. An alarm blared through the building and the lights flickered. Ethan barely had time to react before he saw a group of heavily armed aliens break into the hall. They were unlike anything he had seen before, tall, dark figures with armored suits that seemed to shimmer with strange energy. They moved quickly, surrounding a specific target. His eyes widened in shock as he realized who their target was. Standing in the center of the chaos, surrounded by her guards, was Princess Zephyra, a royal member of the Velnar Empire, one of the most powerful alien species in the galaxy. Zephyra had come to Earth for diplomatic talks, and now her life was in danger. The princess was beautiful, with long silver hair and glowing blue eyes that were filled with both grace and strength. Her presence commanded attention, and in the midst of the madness, she stood tall, seemingly unfazed by the threat around her. Ethan knew he had to do something. He wasn't a trained soldier or a hero. He was just a student who had spent more time in labs than in any form of combat training. But in that moment, his heart raced with a sense of duty. He couldn't stand by while someone, especially the princess, was in danger. Without thinking, Ethan rushed toward the center of the hall, weaving through the panicked crowd. The sound of gunfire filled the air as the attackers began to shoot at the guards surrounding the princess. Ethan's mind raced as he looked around. He spotted a nearby display case containing a powerful piece of alien technology, a phase disruptor capable of temporarily disabling the attacker's weapons. Ethan didn't hesitate. He lunged toward the display case, smashing the glass with a nearby metal rod. With shaky hands, he grabbed the phase disruptor and activated it. The weapon hummed to life, and he aimed it at the attackers. A powerful pulse shot out from the device, knocking the attackers' weapons offline and sending them scrambling in confusion. The entire room went silent for a moment as the attackers realized their weapons had failed. Princess Zephyra, who had been momentarily stunned by the attack, now turned her gaze toward Ethan. He was just an ordinary human, yet he had managed to disable the threat with something as simple as a piece of alien technology. She was impressed, but she didn't have much time to process her thoughts. The attackers were regaining their composure. Ethan quickly grabbed the princess's arm, pulling her toward a nearby exit. He didn't know where it led, but it was their best chance at escaping. Zephyra, despite being the princess, followed his lead without hesitation. As they ran through the halls, Ethan could feel her strength beside him, but he also sensed her confusion. She had not expected a human to act so boldly. They reached an emergency exit and ducked into a secure hallway. The princess looked at Ethan with a mixture of gratitude and surprise. Her voice, soft yet commanding, broke the silence. "Why did you help me?" she asked, her eyes narrowing slightly, as if trying to understand this human who had just saved her life. Ethan took a deep breath, trying to calm his racing heart. He was overwhelmed by the situation but knew he had to answer. I couldn't just stand by," he stammered. "I had to do something. I've studied alien cultures and technologies, and when I saw you in danger, I knew I had to help. I just didn't think it through, I guess. I just acted." The princess studied him for a moment, her gaze piercing before she nodded slowly. She seemed to understand, though Ethan couldn't be sure. She didn't speak for a moment, then finally said, "You are brave, human. I owe you my life." Ethan felt a flush of warmth at her words, but he quickly pushed it aside. It was nothing. I just did what anyone would have done. But Zephyra shook her head. Not anyone would have done what you did. You were willing to risk your life for me. Most would have run the other way. That kind of courage is rare. You don't know what it means to my people. Ethan, still trying to wrap his mind around everything, could barely comprehend what had just happened. He had gone from being an ordinary student to saving the life of an alien princess. And now, he was standing in a secure hallway with her, his heart racing. Suddenly, the door to the hallway slid open, and a group of royal guards appeared, led by Rhizar, the emperor of the Velnar Empire. His imposing figure was a symbol of power, his eyes scanning the room before settling on Zephyra. "My daughter," he said, his deep voice reverberating through the hallway. "Are you unharmed?" Zephyra nodded, stepping forward. "I'm fine, father, but it is because of this human that I am still alive." Rhizar's gaze shifted to Ethan, and for a moment the air seemed thick with tension. Ethan felt as if the entire fate of the universe rested on his shoulders. But then, to his surprise, Rhizar's face softened. "You have done something few would have dared, human," the Emperor said. "You have saved my daughter's life. For that I owe you a debt. It is a debt that our empire will not forget." Ethan, still in shock, didn't know how to respond. He wasn't expecting gratitude from an emperor, especially one as powerful as Rhizar. I didn't mean to cause any trouble. I just wanted to help." The Emperor regarded him for a moment, then gave a slow nod. "You will come with us. We must ensure your safety until this matter is resolved." With that, Ethan found himself escorted by the royal guards through the palace. It felt like a dream. He was no longer just a student at a university. He had just saved the life of an alien princess and was now in the presence of the Emperor. The world had shifted beneath his feet in a way he could never have imagined. As they walked through the grand halls of the palace, Ethan couldn't help but feel a sense of awe. He had always admired the Velnar Empire from a distance, reading about their achievements and history. But now he was part of it. He had become a part of their story. Zephyra walked beside him, her presence both regal and comforting. She had saved his life once before, and now, it seemed, she was offering him a place in her world. Ethan had no idea what the future held, but one thing was certain. His life would never be the same again. Ethan walked through the corridors of the royal palace, still in disbelief over what had happened. Only hours ago, he had been an ordinary student at a university on Earth, studying alien species. Now, he was in the presence of one of the most powerful families in the universe. He had saved the life of Princess Zephyra, and in return, the royal family had welcomed him into their fold, promising him safety. The grand halls of the palace seemed endless, with tall marble pillars lining the walls and soft golden light shining from chandeliers above. The floor was polished to perfection, reflecting the majestic surroundings. Ethan couldn't help but feel out of place in such a luxurious setting, his sneakers clicking softly against the smooth floor as he followed Zephyra and her guards. Zephyra walked beside him, her silver hair flowing behind her like a shimmering waterfall. She didn't speak much, but every now and then she glanced at Ethan with a look that seemed to say she was processing everything that had happened. Her eyes, a deep blue, held a mixture of gratitude and curiosity. Ethan, still in shock, wasn't sure what to say. What was he supposed to do now? He was just a student, and yet he had become part of something far bigger than himself. After a few more turns down the palace hallways, they arrived at a large room with thick velvet curtains hanging over the windows. The room was lavishly furnished, with soft chairs and tables made from alien wood and stone. The walls were adorned with paintings and tapestries, depicting scenes of the Velnar Empire's rich history and victories. Ethan couldn't help but stare at them, mesmerized by the beautiful depictions of alien battles, royal celebrations, and strange planets he had only read about in his textbooks. Zephyra motioned for him to sit on one of the plush chairs near the table, and Ethan did so hesitantly. He felt like a visitor in a world that didn't belong to him. As he sat, he couldn't help but notice the glances of the palace staff, who seemed to recognize the weight of the situation. They knew who he was now. To them, Ethan was more than just a human. He was the person who had saved their princess. "You are tired, I know," Zephyra said, breaking the silence. Her voice was calm and soothing, but there was an underlying strength to it. "You've been through much today. Please rest for a while." Ethan nodded, his body still tense from the adrenaline rush earlier. He hadn't had time to fully process everything that had happened. One moment he was in the university's symposium hall, and the next he was running for his life with the princess, saving her from attackers, and now he was here in the palace. It all felt like a dream. "I'm just trying to catch my breath," Ethan said, his voice shaky. "I never expected something like this." Zephyra gave him a gentle smile. "I understand. The universe can change in the blink of an eye." As Ethan sat in the comfortable chair, he tried to steady his thoughts. He wasn't sure how much time had passed, but the reality of his situation was beginning to sink in. He had saved a princess. He had saved her, someone who was not just royalty but a symbol of the Velnar Empire's power and influence. And now she was looking at him with respect. A few moments later, the door to the room opened, and Emperor Rhizar, Zephyra's father, walked in. He was a tall, imposing figure, his dark blue skin shimmering in the soft light. His eyes, a deep gold, glowed with an ancient wisdom. He wore a dark robe adorned with intricate designs, and a crown made of precious metals rested on his head. His presence commanded attention, and Ethan stood as soon as he saw him. "Please sit," Rhizar said, his voice deep and authoritative. "There's no need for formalities." Ethan sat back down, feeling a mix of awe and nervousness. The Emperor was one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. His empire spanned countless star systems, and his people were known for their intelligence and strength. Ethan had read about him in his xenobiology classes, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. Rhizar sat across from Ethan and Zephyra, his golden eyes studying Ethan intently. For a long moment there was silence, and Ethan shifted in his seat, uncomfortable under the Emperor's gaze. "Your actions today have saved my daughter," Rhizar said at last, his voice calm yet powerful. "That is no small feat. You showed courage and intelligence beyond what many of my own people would have done." Ethan opened his mouth to speak, but quickly shut it. He wasn't sure what to say. How could he respond to someone like Rhizar, someone who had led an entire empire for so long? I just did what felt right," Ethan said softly. "I didn't think about it, I just acted." Rhizar nodded slowly. "That is what makes you different. Humans are often driven by emotion, but you combined your emotions with action. You didn't hesitate, even when you had no idea what might happen next." Zephyra looked at her father with admiration in her eyes, and Ethan couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. He hadn't expected such praise. He had always felt like an outsider, just a student studying alien life, but now he was being treated as someone of importance. "You have earned a place of honor in our palace, Ethan," Rhizar continued. "I will ensure your safety until the danger passes. But beyond that, you will not leave this place empty-handed. You will be given the opportunity to learn from the greatest minds of our empire. Your knowledge of alien species could be invaluable to us." Ethan blinked, his mind racing. This was more than he could ever have imagined. Not only had he saved the princess, but now the Emperor was offering him the chance to study under some of the most brilliant alien scientists and leaders in the galaxy. I don't know what to say," Ethan said, overwhelmed. "I'm just a student, I don't deserve this." Rhizar's eyes softened. "You have already proven your worth, and in our empire, actions speak louder than titles or rank. You are more than just a human now, you are a part of our history." The words settled in Ethan's mind, and he realized the weight of what the Emperor was saying. He wasn't just being offered a place of safety. He was being given an opportunity to shape the future of the Velnar Empire and humanity's relationship with it. "Thank you," Ethan said quietly. He didn't know how else to express his gratitude, but he felt the sincerity in his words. Zephyra, who had been silent for most of the conversation, now spoke. "You have done so much for us already, Ethan. I know that my father is right. You have a unique gift, and I believe you have a place here with us." Ethan turned to her, surprised by the warmth in her voice. Her words were not just a polite gesture. He could feel the sincerity behind them. "Thank you, Zephyra," Ethan said, meeting her gaze. "I don't know what to expect from all of this, but I will do my best to honor your trust." Zephyra smiled, a small but genuine smile. "I have no doubt about that." As the conversation continued, Ethan slowly began to realize that his life had changed forever. He had been thrust into a world far beyond anything he had imagined. But as overwhelming as it was, he felt a sense of purpose growing inside him. He had saved the life of a princess, and in return, he had been welcomed into the heart of an empire. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear: his journey had just begun. Hours passed, and Ethan found himself growing more comfortable in the presence of the royal family. He learned more about the Velnar Empire, their history, their customs, and their way of life. It was a culture unlike anything on Earth, with values that placed honor and loyalty above all else. Ethan could see why the Velnar were so powerful. Their unity and strength were unmatched in the galaxy. As the night drew on, Ethan realized that he was no longer just an observer. He had become part of something far bigger than himself. He had saved a life, and now he had been entrusted with a future in the Velnar Empire. And for the first time in a long while, he felt like he belonged. Days passed since Ethan's life had changed in ways he couldn't have imagined. He had been thrust into a world far beyond his ordinary existence as a student on Earth, a world of power, mystery, and ancient traditions. The Velnar Empire, with its grand palace, its royal family, and its deeply ingrained sense of duty and honor, was a far cry from the university halls where Ethan had spent most of his life. Now, he was part of something larger than himself. He had saved Princess Zephyra's life, and the royal family had not only accepted him, but had given him a place of honor within their palace. In the days following the attack, life seemed to return to a kind of normalcy in the palace, but it was a new normal for Ethan. He had been given quarters that were more lavish than anything he could have imagined. His room was filled with alien artifacts, and the view from his window overlooked vast gardens that stretched out into the distance, the colors of the alien flowers unfamiliar but beautiful. Ethan spent his days learning from some of the best minds in the Empire. He attended lectures on alien technology, the history of the Velnar people, and their interactions with other species across the galaxy. He also trained with Velnar soldiers, learning how to defend himself in case the Empire faced another attack. Even though he wasn't a soldier, his quick thinking during the attack had earned him the respect of the military leaders. But even as he immersed himself in this new world, Ethan never forgot why he was there. He had saved Zephyra's life, and now he felt a deep responsibility to protect her and the empire that had taken him in. He had never expected to become part of something this important, but he had always believed in doing the right thing, no matter the cost. One afternoon, Ethan was summoned to a meeting with Emperor Rhizar. The guards led him through the familiar palace corridors, their footsteps echoing in the quiet halls. When they arrived at the Emperor's chambers, the guards stepped aside, and Ethan entered. Rhizar was seated at a large, ornate desk, his golden eyes watching Ethan with a calm, steady gaze. "Ethan," the Emperor said, his voice as deep and commanding as always, "I have a task for you." Ethan stood before him, his posture respectful but curious. He had learned quickly that in the Velnar Empire nothing was as it seemed. Every conversation held weight, and every word was carefully chosen. "You have proven yourself to be not only brave but intelligent," Rhizar continued. "The attack on my daughter's life was not a random event. It was orchestrated by someone within our own ranks, someone close to the throne." Ethan's heart skipped a beat. He had suspected as much. There had been whispers in the palace, rumors of betrayal, but hearing it from the Emperor himself made it all the more real. "Who?" Ethan asked, his voice steady despite the weight of the question. Rhizar leaned forward, his golden eyes narrowing slightly. "My nephew, Calix. He has long coveted the throne and has made no secret of his desire to overthrow me. The attack on Zephyra was just the beginning. He plans to take power by force, and he has aligned himself with several powerful factions who wish to see the Velnar Empire fall." Ethan felt a surge of anger. He had met Calix before, and he had not trusted him. The prince was arrogant, with a sense of entitlement that bordered on dangerous. Now it seemed his suspicions had been right. "Calix wants to kill Zephyra?" Ethan asked, his fists clenching at his sides. Rhizar nodded slowly. "Yes, if he cannot have the throne, he will do whatever it takes to ensure that Zephyra does not inherit it. He believes that he is the rightful heir, and he will stop at nothing to see that belief realized." Ethan felt a wave of determination wash over him. He had never been one to back down from a fight, especially when innocent lives were at stake. He had already saved Zephyra once, and he wasn't going to let her down now. "What do you want me to do?" Ethan asked. Rhizar studied him for a long moment before responding. "I need you to help Zephyra. She will be the one to lead the Empire into the future, but she cannot do it alone. I will not be able to fight this battle for her. The people must see that she is the true leader, and you, Ethan, will be her protector." Ethan nodded without hesitation. I'll do whatever it takes. The Emperor's gaze softened, and for the first time, Ethan saw a flicker of something else, trust. It was a rare thing for someone like Rysar to trust a human, but Ethan had earned it. He had saved the princess's life, and now he was being asked to protect her once again. Good, Rysar said. We will begin preparations immediately. Calix is gathering his forces, and we need to act before he can move against us. We will strike first, but I will need you and Zephyra to work together to ensure that our people remain loyal. Ethan felt the weight of the task ahead of him. He had never fought in a war, never been part of a political struggle of this scale. But he wasn't afraid. He had seen what Zephyra was capable of, and he knew that together they could defeat Calix and restore peace to the Empire. Later that evening, as the palace settled into the quiet rhythm of night, Ethan met with Zephyra in the royal gardens. The soft light of the moons outside illuminated the lush landscape, casting long shadows across the pathways. Zephyra was standing near a fountain, her silver hair glowing in the light. She looked calm as always, but Ethan could see the tension in her shoulders, the weight of her future pressing down on her. Ethan, she said softly when she saw him, I've been thinking about what my father said. Ethan approached her, his footsteps muffled by the soft grass beneath his feet. I know, he said, his voice gentle. I'm ready. We'll stop Calix together. Zephyra turned to face him, her deep blue eyes searching his face. I'm not sure if I'm ready for this. I've been trained to rule, but the pressure, it's overwhelming. Ethan stepped closer, placing a hand on her shoulder. You don't have to do it alone. I'll be by your side. You're not alone in this. She looked at him, a small smile tugging at the corners of her lips. I'm glad you're here, Ethan. I couldn't do this without you. Ethan smiled back, feeling the weight of her words. There was something about Zephyra that made him want to protect her. She wasn't just a princess to him. She was a person, someone who had shown him kindness and trust when no one else had. He had to fight for her, not just because of the Empire, but because he believed in her. The next few days were filled with preparations. Rysar's forces began to mobilize, but they were careful not to reveal their full strength too soon. Calix was still gathering allies, and they had to strike quickly before he could make his move. Ethan spent his days training with the Velnar soldiers, learning how to fight with their weapons and defend himself against the powerful alien species that might stand in their way. His evenings were spent strategizing with Zephyra, discussing their next moves and planning how to rally the people of the Empire to their cause. As the days turned into weeks, Ethan began to feel more like a part of the Velnar family. He had earned their respect and they had earned his. But no matter how much time passed, he knew that the final battle was coming, and he wasn't sure what the outcome would be. But one thing was certain, he would fight for Zephyra. He would fight for the Velnar Empire, and he would fight for humanity's place in the galaxy. The Empire's fate rested in their hands, and Ethan was ready to do whatever it took to ensure that the Velnar Empire remained strong and that the princess was safe. The final day of preparation arrived faster than Ethan had expected. It felt like just yesterday when he had been a normal student, attending classes on Earth, fascinated by alien life, but never expecting to become part of it. Now, he was standing in the midst of a battle that could decide the fate of the Velnar Empire. He had trained, learned, and fought beside Zephyra and the royal family, and the time to confront Calix had come. Ethan stood at the edge of the royal gardens, looking out over the vast landscape. The moonlight bathed everything in a soft glow, and the silence of the night seemed to settle over the palace. It was a moment of calm before the storm. He took a deep breath, trying to steady his nerves. He had never been in a battle like this before. He had never been part of a conflict that would shape the future of an entire empire. But he knew one thing for certain. He would fight for Zephyra, for her people, and for humanity's place in the galaxy. Zephyra had come to join him, her presence calm and serene as always. She walked toward him, her silver hair glistening in the moonlight, her expression thoughtful but resolute. She was ready. Ethan could see it in her eyes. This was no longer just a struggle for the throne. This was a fight for the survival of the Velnar Empire, and Zephyra was determined to lead her people. You're nervous, she said softly as she reached his side, her voice gentle but full of understanding. Ethan turned to face her, giving a small smile. I've never been in a battle like this, but I'll do whatever it takes. Zephyra's eyes softened, and she placed a hand on his arm. "You've already done so much, Ethan, more than anyone could ask of you. I know you will stand by me until the end." The sincerity in her words made his chest tighten. He had come to care deeply for Zephyra, not just as a princess, but as a person. She was kind, brave, and strong, but she was also burdened with the weight of her people's future. It wasn't just the throne she sought to protect, it was everything she held dear. Ethan could feel the importance of their mission, the responsibility of standing beside her. "We'll win," Ethan said quietly, though he wasn't entirely sure if he believed it. There was so much at stake. Calix had gathered a powerful army, and his ambition was a dangerous force. He was willing to destroy everything to take the throne. But Ethan wasn't going to let that happen, not while Zephyra was by his side. The next morning, the Velnar forces were ready. The Empire had mobilized its best soldiers, and the palace was buzzing with activity. Soldiers marched through the halls, preparing for battle, while the royal advisors strategized in private rooms. Ethan had been given a special role. He would be part of the team that would protect Zephyra at all costs. He wasn't a soldier, but he was determined to do his part. As the day wore on, the tension in the palace grew. Word had come that Calix's forces were close, and the final confrontation was about to begin. The air was thick with anticipation, and the ground seemed to shake beneath their feet as the armies prepared for war. Ethan could feel his heart racing as he donned the armor provided to him by the Velnar military. It was heavy but protective, designed to withstand the powerful weapons of their enemies. Zephyra stood nearby, her face a mask of determination. She was ready, but Ethan could see the sadness in her eyes. She was about to lead her people into a fight that would determine the future of their empire. She had never wanted this, never wanted to be in a war. But duty had called, and she would answer. Ethan walked over to her, standing beside her as she looked out over the battlefield. The horizon was filled with smoke, and the sounds of battle could already be heard in the distance. "You don't have to do this alone," Ethan said, his voice steady. "I'm here. We'll fight together." Zephyra looked at him, her expression softening. "I know, I'm not alone, Ethan, not anymore." Together they walked to the front lines where the Emperor waited. Rysar stood tall, his presence commanding the attention of everyone around him. He looked at Zephyra with pride, but there was no time for words. The battle was upon them. "Stay close," Rysar instructed, his voice calm but filled with authority. "We will move forward together, and we will make sure Calix does not succeed." Ethan nodded, feeling a sense of responsibility settle in. He wasn't just fighting for the Velnar Empire anymore. He was fighting for a future where Zephyra could rule, where her people could thrive, and where humanity could stand side by side with the alien civilizations of the galaxy. The battle was fierce. The Velnar forces clashed with Calix's army, and the sounds of battle echoed across the field. Ethan fought alongside the soldiers, doing his best to hold his own. He wasn't a trained warrior, but he had learned quickly. He used the knowledge he had gained from his studies to defend himself and protect the royal family. Every move was calculated, every decision vital to the outcome of the fight. As the battle raged on, Ethan found himself side by side with Zephyra, their weapons raised and ready. They fought together, moving in sync as they took on the enemies before them. Ethan could see the strength in her, the courage that made her a leader. She was no longer just a princess. She was a warrior fighting for her people. Calix's forces were formidable, but they were no match for the determination of the Velnar soldiers and their allies. The battle shifted in their favor as more and more of Calix's army began to fall. It wasn't just the soldiers who fought for the Velnar Empire, it was the people, the ones who believed in Zephyra and her vision for a better future. After what felt like an eternity, the final confrontation came. Calix himself appeared on the battlefield, his face twisted in anger and desperation. He was surrounded by his loyalists, but the Velnar forces had the upper hand. Calix's time had come, and he knew it. "Zephyra!" Calix shouted, his voice full of rage. "You think you can take what is mine? The throne belongs to me, not you." Zephyra stood tall, her sword raised, her gaze unwavering. "The throne does not belong to you, Calix. It belongs to the people. And I will lead them into a future of peace and prosperity, not one built on ambition and betrayal." Calix sneered, raising his weapon. "We shall see about that." The final battle between the two was swift and brutal. Calix fought with all the fury of someone who believed his destiny was being stolen from him. But Zephyra was stronger, stronger not just in skill, but in spirit. She fought with the heart of a true leader, someone who cared for her people more than for her own power. And in the end, it was her strength that prevailed. With a final blow, Zephyra disarmed Calyx, knocking him to the ground. The battle was over. The Velnar forces cheered, their loyalty to Zephyra solidified in that moment. The Empire had been saved, and the throne was hers as it should be. Ethan stood beside her, watching as the people of the Empire celebrated. It had been a long and difficult journey, but they had won. Zephyra was now the rightful ruler of the Velnar Empire, and the future was brighter than ever. Zephyra turned to Ethan, a smile on her face. "We did it!" Ethan smiled back, his heart swelling with pride. "We did." As the two of them stood there, side by side, watching their people celebrate their victory, Ethan realized that he had found a new home, a new purpose. He had saved a princess, and in return he had found a place among the stars. The future was uncertain, but with Zephyra by his side, Ethan knew that together they would face whatever came next.